Bonus content 1 already established. Bonus content 2. After a night like last night, there's no way we couldn't sit down and break it all down with the OBR's Pete Smith. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things dog pound, LGB, NELOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, and I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. Obviously, a ton of content coming at you right now. Just trying to keep you guys, obviously, the appetite is there, trying to keep you all satisfied. If you are not part of the everyday crowd, we'll make a new plan. Stand, subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show's always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. You can get everything you need for your small business through LinkedIn Jobs. You can find the people you need, the personnel you need, and the easiest way to do it, of course, is to go to linkedin.com, use /LockedOnNFL as your code, and get everything you need. Like I said, we couldn't have an episode of the magnitude of what was last night. And, obviously 67,000 plus in the stadium. As the story grows, we'll find out eventually that there were 250,000 people in Cleveland Browns Stadium last night. But I do come to you here with this, Pete. And there was a time, it was probably late spring, early summer. We had done an episode together and, turned the mic off and basically went into it. And the first thing you said is, yeah, I agree with you. I think they're going to win. Now, if you had told us everything that was going to happen to this franchise this season, we both would have looked at each other and said, well, I guess that was that. But Pete, they just continue to string it along. No obstacle is too big. They don't back away from extra grind, hard work, any of this stuff. And you get a night like last night where they just came out foot hammered on the accelerator. And by the time we turned it to the second quarter, the Browns basically ran away and hit already.
Yeah, it was a really impressive victory considering the way they did it. You expected the defense to sort of dominate given what the Jets were rolling in with. But you and I were both concerned about the matchup against their defense, and the Browns blew me away with what they were able to accomplish.
And we at the time thought we were going to have Amari Cooper.
Yeah. They did it without Amari Cooper, but you're sitting there going, well, the Jets have a really strong defense. They have a really strong defensive line. The Browns have have weaknesses up front. That you got relative to their ability. The two tackles played better than they have, which is great. You saw a running game we haven't seen. And the biggest thing that the Jets had going for them were their corners. So the Browns just basically said, okay, we're just never going to challenge the corners and just take advantage of everything else. The Browns have been playing a bunch of teams that runs primarily zone defenses, and the Jets played a ton of man, and the Browns punished them every possible way you could with man coverage, utilizing clear out type routes where you had a receiver run straight down the field and take at least one, if not two, defenders with him, which cleared out some underneath stuff. That 3rd and 15 play to David Njoku is a great example where you suddenly have a ton of space. The drag route action where Njoku just beat CJ Mosley up the sideline. Again, you had receivers just take all the defenders out of the way. With that, you saw Cedric Tillman, Harrison Bryant almost get called for OPI that opened up Cedric Tillman. The Jerome Ford touchdown was David Njoku clearing out defenders. It was incredible. And whereas certainly I think play calling was a big factor in the Browns having the success they did against the Texans. I feel like that was just in a lot of ways Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper just playing so unbelievably well. It didn't matter. Whereas this game, I think, was like the perfect marriage of game plan and execution that really highlighted everything. You saw the game plan really take advantage of where the Jets' weaknesses were in terms of being able to exploit the areas of man coverage. And then you saw everybody else execute at a really high level for those first 2 quarters that just allowed them to just continue to put up points against what was the number 3 defense relative to EPA in the NFL. That was I don't know if you want to call it a statement, but it was sort of proof that this thing can work beyond what we've seen against sort of some of the weaker defenses in the league.
And, and that was even the thing, and the surprising thing about the way it worked with David Njoku as early in the game as it did is, once that, announcement came at 6:45 that Amari Cooper wasn't going to be able to answer the bell, if you're the Jets, the next obvious thing for me would have been, well, we better make sure 85 doesn't beat us. And, 85 just whipped you for about the first, 21, 22 minutes, and it was over after that. But Pete, there's obviously so much emphasis on Myles Garrett, and obviously the number 1 overall pick in the 2017 NFL draft. And, his career illustrious, will go to Canton one day. And as much as Myles was the sure thing, and you see the growth, and now the Browns had 3 first-round picks in that draft, and you see the growth here of David Njoku. Look, all the talent was there. And, a lot of people, they want to try to give credit here to, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, but they weren't sure either. Obviously, they were not. One of their first significant free agent signings, obviously, was Austin Hooper, was a tight end, and it started slow for David that year. And then by the end of that year, we started to realize, that David Njoku had already become the better player than Austin Hooper. And now this franchise obviously committed big money to David Njoku. And now you see where David is now, the complete player that he is, over 80 receptions for the season, knocking on the door for 900 yards. And keep in mind, there was a rough stretch here for David for a couple of weeks, but seeing it all come together for a guy like this, David came in as a world-class athlete who needed to become and learn how to become a football player, and he has done that.
Yeah, I mean, like David Njoku is a good example of where your organization is built around people. David Njoku is sort of in a way that we really haven't seen a player evolve. Is he basically grew up in Cleveland in a way like we just haven't seen that. You don't get a whole lot of kids that are 20 when you draft them,
and you won't anymore.
And certainly his maturity took time to get there, but you also took a position that took time. So it was sort of a frustrating element from all that. You had year 2 where it looked like, okay, he's ready to take off. He had a big year. And then he had some setbacks with injuries and the maturity and just growing frustrations that led to the point where at one point he was thinking the best way to serve himself was to get out. They ultimately get through that, resolve it. And then they bet big on him with the contract, which, there were people who wanted to put the 5th-year option on him and just sort of play it out, which would have been prohibitively expensive had they actually gone that route. They saved a ton of money with what they were able to do. And now it looks like a bargain with the way he's been playing. I don't know off the top of my head, but he's got to have like at least 400 yards over the last 4 games, 3 or 4
600 yards after 600 yards rack. I mean, everything he's done.
And now what you had is obviously, like we said, Amari Cooper's not playing in this game. But when those two are back on the field together, you have 2 guys that teams have to now game plan for. You have to have answers for now 2 guys in the passing game, which is problematic and creates issues. And when that works, that gives you a major advantage. And hopefully, if you're the Browns, you're looking at this, maybe this can allow us to sustain some things in the running game. Maybe it does allow us to at least protect Joe better than we thought we might be able to. And they just continue to find ways to get guys the ball. And unfortunately, he suffers the head injury, which is scary. But Elijah Moore, again, put into that X role, really thrived. The thing you're sitting there, you sort of want to like be frustrated with is like, why can't all 3 of these things work at the same time in one game where you get Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, and David Njoku? That's happened once where all 3 guys have sort of have paid major contributions in one game that led to a win. They haven't ever had a situation where, they just don't. It's always a couple guys working as opposed to getting everybody to work. But it's a good problem to have. You have enough guys with talent to get open, to create plays that cause problems for the defense, that you can see a path where the Browns get hot and they get into the postseason and they make a run. And where that ends, who knows? But they just play a brand of football where you can easily poke holes in all the things they're doing, and you look at it. But at the same time, like, I don't know anyone that wants to play them. Certainly don't want to play them in Cleveland if they can help it. And that is, it's daunting that you are praying not to play what may end up being the 5th seed because of how well they're playing this year, with a bunch of guys that nobody expected to be contributing this year. Certainly Njoku and Cooper are, exemptions to that. They were supposed to be good, but so many of the other players on this team on offense are guys that, are contributing in spite of expectations. Joe Flacco, Jerome Ford, who had a monster game in the first half, getting the offensive line play that they've gotten with, tackles 5, 6, 7, 12, whatever. It just, using David Bell and Cedric Tillman is extensions of pass protection, because they need everybody to make this thing work, has been certainly a testament to the message of team and everything that they're trying to preach, which gets this buy-in from all these guys, and everybody seems to be. It's remarkable watching them all enjoy the success the way they are. There's seemingly no animosity whatsoever with this team. Everybody's just sort of in with whoever can get the job done.
There's no question about it. It is literally a team effort, and the old adage of it's not always the best team that wins come postseason play. Sometimes it's the hottest team. Cleveland Browns, certainly 4 in a row, look like they could be that team. Jeff Lloyd, Pete Smith, your latest Locked On Browns. Don't go anywhere. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and may not have the time or resources to hire, but they certainly do need to hit when they are ready to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, it's quick, and it's easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Jeff Lloyd, we're joined by the OBR's Pete Smith, and I appreciate every one of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, you want in. You don't need to nobody. You don't need nothing special. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel, and you are in. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Pete, obviously the defensive effort last night, strong to start, bent but don't break as the game went on. But I do want to highlight one thing here. We had spent some time here talking about Ronnie Hickman and the type of player that Ronnie Hickman has become, quickly forced into a playing time opportunity. And, hey, if Ronnie Hickman gets to play this little bit of a deep zone, if Ronnie Hickman gets to see everything as it comes, it seems like this kid really flourishes in that role. Well, Trevor Siemian feeling Myles Garrett coming off the right side, and I'm sure Trevor Siemian had some flashbacks of what had happened to a similar time to him in his career with Myles Garrett coming off the right-hand side. Had no choice, fired it. Ronnie Hickman baited him, took it 30 yards, and basically the party was on from there.
Yeah, we've been waiting for how now 4 games to see who is going to test him, who is going to sort of try to punish the Browns for having Ronnie Hickman on the field. And that's certainly not necessarily an example where you're sitting there going, he's really trying to go after Ronnie Hickman. Ronnie Hickman was just in a really good spot. But that was an example where you start to see proof of why you shouldn't test him, why he's up to the task, and why, his exemplary play over this stretch is doesn't feel like a fluke. It doesn't feel like this is luck. He's just playing good football in a way that he's better in his first year in the pros than he was in his last year in college. It's remarkable how much the NFL has been good for Ronnie Hickman, who was an undrafted rookie. And yes, there were people talking about maybe he should be drafted day 3 late, but nobody was sitting there really scratching their head going, how did you let this guy go undrafted? But one, it's a credit to the strategy they employed in that draft, where they, with the exception of Ika, they took nothing but premium positions and then collected these guys after the draft, where they had a really enticing opening because they had holes on their roster where you were an undrafted rookie. You could be like, I can compete for that spot and I can get I can earn a spot on the 53 right out of the gate, which is what Hickman did. But that interception was fantastic. He scores a touchdown. Frankly, I thought the Browns were going to score more than one touchdown on defense in this game. Just the offensive line for the Jets is miserable. Trevor Siemian has no shot. The ball had to come out in 1.9 seconds. Like, what I thought was going to happen was somebody like Denzel Ward or Greg Newsome was going to just jump one of those routes on the outside and just house one. It didn't happen, but they were all over them. And throughout this game, you're continuing to see players that weren't on this team step up and make big plays. Jerron Harmon had a couple nice plays. Alex Wright, another sack. He's got 4 on the year.
3 straight games.
And yes, it's a hustle sack, but he earned it. He went around the other side, beat his block, and chased it down. Like, he looks like a player where you're sitting there getting excited for what he can be. I'm not ready to say, hey, he's ready to start, but he's somebody that a very nice part of that rotation, a guy who can play all up and down the line. Myles Garrett dominates with, a tough situation in his personal life with the death of his uncle, which his press conference was jaw-dropping in many ways. Going into that, Zarius Smith is continuing to play on a good streak. You're just seeing guys play, but Greg Newsome is playing the best football of his career in a way where he used to be not physical enough for flag, has suddenly become Mr. Physical. Last week, he blows up the block to drive the receiver into the backfield. Nobody was there to make the tackle, but it was a remarkable play. This time, the guy catches the ball. Greg Newsome reaches around to grab him by the back and throw him down. He's the level of confidence he's playing with right now is notable. Martin Emerson continues to play well. Like, there's a lot of growth on this team despite injuries where they've lost some guys along the way, but they're young enough where you can continue to see these guys growing and playing well. I'm hoping what we saw from Taki was an indication that his knee is getting healthier.
No doubt.
It's a really tough spot for him to come in off the ACL without a great amount of recovery. And, his knee was not right. Clearly he was limited early in the year, and you're hoping that games like last night are an indication he's starting to feel more like himself, which gives them a boost. They need all the help they can get there as they're still waiting for Anthony Walker to come back. DeAnthony Bell continues to be a nice little role player. He's not a great player for every matchup, but the thing you love about him is the way he plays. There's no hesitation. He sees it, he's firing, and he's making a play. There's just a lot you can appreciate about what this team's doing on that side of the ball. And, it's going to be interesting. They go into the postseason. What's this going to look like against a veteran quarterback? They had their struggles with against the Russell Wilsons of the world. They had the struggles against the Matt Staffords of the world. What's it going to look like when they play another one of those type of quarterbacks? Because anything short of that, rookies, journeyman backups, whatever, are just meat at this point. And it's just a matter of just watching it unfold.
And there's so many ways to look at this. I mean, you think about, the conversations that we're having early in the offseason with Greg Newsome, I don't want to play negative. Once everybody realized how good this team is, basically folks were saying, hey, coach, if you need a long snapper, I'll long snap. Do whatever you got to do. I want to be a part of this. I want to be on the field. And it's just turned into this mantra that hasn't stopped. And now, obviously, going into week 18, by far one of the hottest, most successful teams in the NFL to this point. Jeff Lloyd, Pete Smith, your latest Locked On Browns continues. Stick around, kids. You can order pizza, you can order wings, soda, burgers, or even just buns on DoorDash, and you get it all delivered to your house without missing the game. You can get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and you enter the code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. You can get prepared before game day, stock up on your favorite appetizers, and order all your tailgate gear on DoorDash. Then you get ready, obviously, to watch the Browns win. That's a 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. Again, do not forget. Use code LOCK23 for 50% off up to $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and you spend $15 or more. Subject to change, terms apply. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers Stay Hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We continue on here. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, the OBR's Pete Smith in the house. Pete, we're here. It's officially in. The ticket is punched. 4 straight wins. Still too early to tell the way week 18 the plan's going to be. Will the Browns be in? Will the Browns kind of play a bystander role, rest some people? But what are the legitimate chances for this Cleveland Browns team here in January?
Well, I think they have a puncher's chance in every game they play in because it's just who they are. I mean, that's the way they've played. They've beaten the Ravens on the road. They've beaten the 49ers at home. They've beaten, I think 7 now teams with a winning record. You put them on a field with anybody, they can potentially win. And the way they play defense, they've always got a shot. There's obviously a little bit of a turnover issue with them. They just continue to turn the ball over. Joe Flacco is a dynamic passer who takes shots and is aggressive. There's certainly risk with that. There were certainly a handful of throws yesterday where they were put in danger that could have been intercepted. Elijah Moore bailed him out on one. There are a couple other ones. But as long as they sort of maintain this balance where, Flacco is not throwing away the game, even if he's just keeping both teams in the game a little bit, as he did last night and has done in several other games, the defense is enough to sort of fix it for them in a lot of ways. They can endure some of those mistakes and then get the points on the back end. That's sort of what's been great about the success yesterday with this win is the Browns score a ton of points. He throws the pick 6, which was awful. It was horrendous, but it wasn't enough to maybe there was a moment there where you thought maybe the Jets had a shot to get back in the game. But ultimately it didn't matter. Certainly there are things you look at, you go, is the running game going to be enough? If the Browns get a lead, can they eat enough clock? There are questions about, can the Browns just play clean enough football against some teams that maybe are going to play more mistake-free? Those are all valid. And the earlier question, how does this defense do again against another proven quarterback who's seen a lot of football and understands what the Browns are doing defensively? But having said all that, why not? I mean, they have, again, proven what they can do. Can they do it for, depending on how, the rest of this shakes out, 4 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row? It's going to be difficult, but at the same point, everybody has doubted them to this point and they've succeeded. So at some point, you just got to either be willing to just say, I'm not going to bet against them anymore and see what they can do. You may not want to bet on them, but they are tough enough that, again, no team wants to play the Browns. No team definitely wants to avoid this team playing in Cleveland, but they just play a way that gives them a shot in every game.
And I think that's the thing that becomes, for this team, so likable. And the likable factor is, everybody just goes out there. They are like the ultimate 9-5 team. Yes, there's a lot of individual talent here, and it's certainly on display week in, week out. But, nobody's not asked to do something that somebody else won't do. Give yourself up here because it's going to make for the betterment of the play. Defensive linemen, give yourselves up for JOK, for Sione. Just the way this team operates, and, the amount of, I can only imagine the amount of conversations that have been, within the locker room, within team meetings, probably from a Wednesday or a Thursday to a Friday of, Wednesday, well, this is what we got right now. All right, Thursday, maybe it's getting better, maybe it's getting worse. Friday, oh man, well, he's out. Or even a couple of Mondays where you say Anthony Walker just had surgery. DeJuan Jones just had surgery. His season's over. Oh, we were hoping Jedrick Wills was going to make his way back. Now he's had surgery. His season's over too. The moment doesn't get too big. The obstacle is never felt like it's something they cannot overcome. This team just literally finds a way to advance. Very similar, the NCAA to college basketball tournament, survive and advance. That is what this team does on a weekly basis, and it has made it an extremely enjoyable team and product to follow to this point. Got 1 week to go. Obviously, everybody enjoy your weekend here. We'll have a better idea of the way everything's going to play out for week 18. Once we get towards the end of Sunday, obviously all eyes on that Baltimore-Miami game to see if we can even take this up to another level of nuts. Certainly could be a possibility. He is Pete Smith. Pete and the OBR, obviously, after a night like last night, busting their butts, trying to get as much content as possible. The thirst from all of you was there. We're all here trying to quench it. And we got to be honest with you, we all have written and done shows and, put out content about a lot of bad football. But right now, putting in a little extra work, putting out a little extra content, ain't nobody walking away from that. We're all just excited as you guys are. So make sure you check everything out. Make sure you're following at _Pete Smith _ Check out, of course, everything over at the OBR. Myself, Jeff Lloyd, your host here now, 7 seasons, by far the most exciting season I've been here with you guys. Even the fact that the faces are changing on a weekly basis, I think even makes to the appeal and, draws everybody here to want to see this team succeed the way they are and overcome adversity. Appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. If you are not in on the Locked On Browns everyday crowd, well, make a new plan stand and subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.